Hello, my name is Harry Henshaw of Enhanced Healing Counseling, and I would like to talk about a concept of spirituality. In the past, I was very unable to really understand what spirituality was all about. When I would hear the concept, it was just a missing for me. When I would have to talk about it in class, my understanding of it was very, very little, and not even clear about what I did say. Um, Eventually, I was living in Toronto, working on a doctoral program, studying philosophy. And I enjoyed living in Toronto, but for financial reasons, I had to move back to the States. And when I moved into Chicago, where I got a job in mental health, working in an ACLF. And during this period of time, I was introduced to the work of Dr. Albert Ellis, a psychologist in New York. And here I learned the importance of cognition and thinking. I believe this was the start of my path inward when I was studying Dr. Ellis and how important my thinking was, which I really never actually thought about. After studying for about 5 years in Chicago and getting interested in the field of psychology and counseling, I decided to move to Boston to work on a doctoral program in counseling. When I was there, I was at the Harvard bookstore and I discovered a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. The concept that she talked about in the book was self-love. Her whole orientation was very cognitive in nature. She talked about the importance of thinking. Change your thinking, change your life. But the concept of self-love was connected to our thinking. And in Boston, I was working in the field of mental health and sort of putting these two things together, the importance of my thinking and the concept of self-love, it started a fusion between the two, a fusion of cognition or thinking with self-love. I eventually, after graduation, moved to Miami and continued my work in mental health, and eventually started to work with individuals with substance use disorders. This fusion or melding of cognition and self-love slowly began to shape my work and eventually transformed my entire counseling practice. The goal of treatment for me now had become self-love. Now I started to name this process transformation. This was the beginning of a counseling practice for me. Eventually, I wrote a book about it, about its importance in the world of recovery and treatment of addiction disorders. The book was called The Prelude to a Paradigm Shift for Addiction. Near the end of writing this book, I experienced a breakthrough, what I now call an epiphany, happened to me. This epiphany was very powerful and very moving. In my counseling practice of transformation, self-love was the solution to addictive behavior. And that's what I wrote about in the book. While this discovery is the application of her work, there is so much more that was eventually revealed to me, especially in the epiphany. I learned that there was still a deeper level to her work. This is where the concept of spirituality finally came to make sense for me, first time in my life. Self-love was very important to Louise Hay, but I do not believe now that it was the only or final goal of her work. My discovery. When we learn to love ourselves authentically, we begin to experience a higher power, spirit, source, often referred to as God. The essence of all of them is the experience of love. The love that I experience of myself is the love that God is. Simultaneously, we also begin to know and experience our true or real identity. We come to know that who we truly are is higher power, spirit, source, God, that which we've been looking for our entire lives. Our identity is only to be discovered and experienced by a journey inward through our thoughts, thinking process, feelings, and experiences. At the same time all of this is happening, we are in the process of connecting to that which we are, of actually becoming higher power, source, spirit, God. As Wayne Dyer once said, this conversation is not blasphemy, but rather our identity. The process of coming to know and be who we truly are. I hope this brief presentation has made sense to you. And if you have any questions of it, please feel free to get in touch with me, either by emailing me or calling me on my telephone. All of this information can be gathered from my website, enhancedhealing.com.